Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would do something different. Last couple of videos I've done pack openings, I've done a box opening. So I thought today would be a good time to share one of my pet decks for Magic the Gathering. Again, I was very big into Magic the last few years. Definitely took a step away from it from the last couple of sets within the last few months, and kind of got loosely back into it with Final Fantasy, which is funny because again, Final Fantasy was kind of the thing that turned me away for a bit, knowing that the price point for it at the time was ridiculous, but while higher than your normal standard set, it is closer to a Universes Beyond set, maybe a little higher than it usually is at the beginning, but neither here nor there. I'm really excited to kind of loosely be getting back into Magic. Again, I do not play competitively with Magic. I do not go to any like pre-releases or tournaments. I basically just play with my local pod and people on Spell Table from time to time. So I did want to share one of my pet decks. And again, my commander for this one is Loot, the Key to Everything. Now, funny story. I really wanted to build this commander not because I saw him prior, but because whenever I got a collector pack or two for Thunder Junction, he was my very first raised foil card that I ever got. And for anybody that's in Magic that knows, raised foil is really awesome. It's really cool. It's not in every set. It's in specific sets that they choose to do. And now, while he wasn't as expensive as some other raised foils and some other sets, it was really cool to hit that. And I don't think I had ever hit anything as high as he was. I think at the time he was like $100 card. Definitely ended up getting rid of that so I could get other staples that I needed. For me, again, the art is great and all, but I'm not a big like I have to foil everything out person. Like I'm perfectly fine and content with just normal art because again I want my deck to be fairly controlled budget, not trying to overspend or anything. And I usually interchange my staples as well, so that I'm not buying 4 or 5 of these heavy expensive staples. I just switch them out as needed. But anyways, so the whole premise of my deck, so I'll just kind of read his thing. Loot, he has Ward 1, which again for non-Magic players, that means if you want to interact with him in terms of like playing spells to do anything to him once he's on the field, you have to pay an additional 1 generic mana. So nothing crazy. It's honestly one of those little things where I usually hope that people forget. And so I've had a lot of times where people forget he has a Ward 1 and they save the interaction for him at the last minute and realize they spent all their mana and they don't have enough to pay for their spell and the 1 for his ward. But honestly, Loot is not a big body. He's just a small 1/2. But what is important with this deck is his power. So his power reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of card types among other non-land permanents you control. You may play those cards this turn. So what is important to note is this deck is a what you would consider a what is the word I'm looking for? I always forget the phrase. Impulse, if you will. So basically, I am trying to get a lot of card advantage, but the downside to it is I either use it or I lose it. So me exiling those cards means if I don't use them that turn, they will never hit my graveyard. They will leave game, and I can never get to them again. In Magic, there's very, very few limited cards that let you bring back anything from exile, and half the time those cards are cards that exile those cards itself, and that's its whole point, is to bring those cards back. But with this card, it's basically me trying to get a lot of options out turn by turn, and seeing what I can do. The way I built this deck is very... I guess if you could say, I just kind of like the randomization of it. I definitely built this in mind with, yes, having a couple of key ways to win, but I also don't have, if I remember, any really tutors in this deck. And the specific reason being I don't want to just constantly always try to find my win con. I definitely wanted this deck to be something that could be random, so every game is different. Some games I may be in the lead, but then I have no way to end out the game because, again, it's so random. In other games, I could come from nothing and just come from behind because I have a lot of different varying things that I can do. So really, really fun card. Again, usually people see this 1/2 body and don't think anything of it because I'm not swinging for lethal commander damage. But I am using its ability to try to get more options into my arsenal. All right, so with this deck, I am running 22 creatures, 13 sorceries, 11 instants, 3 artifacts, which is surprising. I guess I dropped some artifacts. Enchantments, I'm running 14, and lands, I'm running 33. Now, I know what some of you are thinking if you play Magic. 33 lands is kind of low. And you are 100% correct. There's definitely a couple of times every now and again where I'll brick on lands, and that is very hurtful. But that's where Loot's power comes into play, in that, you know what, if I'm hurting for lands, Loot can maybe get me there to where I can cheat out some more cards and try to see if I can hit a land that I can use. Now, I will say the flip side of that is there are times where Loot lets me advantage for 4 or 5 cards and I hit nothing but lands. And for Magic, you can only hit 1 land per turn, but we have creatures and some other things in the deck that will help with that, just so that we can get multiple lands on the field throughout the game as needed, so that we don't run into that problem. Okay. All right. So what was also something I wanted to make sure was very prevalent of knowing what is that's probably not the word I'm looking for. What is the key thing for Loot was that, again, he needs to have a different number of card types. So again, these are going to be permanent. So I have as many permanent types as I can. I only have 1 battle, and I people do not play battles. People hate battles. I honestly like this one because it does give me card advantage, or it gives me landfall or a land trigger to where I can basically get land onto the field. So if I pay for 4, which is not hard in this deck, basically that battle enters the field. I search my library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. And then I don't mess with this battle anymore. I can flip it if I attacked it. If somebody else wanted to waste their resources and attack it, I guess they could. I don't think I've had anybody ever take out my battle. And I don't think anybody usually messes with battles, because usually it's like their first thing is a on cast effect, and then flipping it over will give it another effect. And again, for me, I don't need to do any of that because, again, I want it to be a permanent type. It's a permanent type. If it sits on the field, that's another extra card that I get for advantage. On the other side, if you wanted to know, it is a creature with vigilance and haste, and as long as it's on the battlefield, it's a land in addition to its other types, and then it's a mana dork. You can tap it to do mana, but it's also a 4/4 body. Again, I do not with this deck recommend flipping it over, because then you lose out on Loot's ability. The only reason I would maybe flip it over, and even then I probably still wouldn't, was to, if I had a way to just completely attack out the next turn, but usually unnecessary. I like having that card advantage. We are running 2 Planeswalkers. First one was another Thunder Junction hit that I had, which this was a really sought after one when it first came out. Not as big people on it anymore. It is a 2-cost Planeswalker. He has the +1 ability to draw a card, then discard a card. He can use his other +1 to exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less from my hand, and if I do, it becomes plotted. Now, what's really nice about plotting is that it is a form of essentially exile. So I'm casting it from somewhere outside of my hand, and that's really nice because there's a lot of cards in this deck that benefit from things being played away from your hand. So that is a very, very, very good card for this deck, being able to do that. And if he were to get to that -6, which I don't think I've ever hit it to -6, usually people know if it gets to that point, you need to take it out. Until the end of turn, whenever you cast a spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Again, easy to get rid of. Usually try not to defend it unless necessary. If I have a lot of tokens, I'll defend it. But typically this one just maybe gets me a plot or 2 just so that I can do it. Or sometimes I don't even mess with it so people don't attack it, so that hopefully it stays on the field. Another one is not really the greatest one. It's just kind of a body there for the Planeswalkers, is Chandra, Fire Artisan. Really, I just do it for the +1 ability, exile the top card of my library. I may play it this turn. If I were to get to 7, I could exile the top 7 cards and play them this turn. That's kind of risky because, again, I may not have enough mana to play all 7. There's definitely some heavy hitting big cost cards in this deck that could be very detrimental if I hit all of them. So usually don't go to -7, and I don't think anybody would also let that one go up to -7. But again, just another planeswalker, so that if it's on the field, you get that extra advantage. I'm gonna go to creatures. All right. Next one is Archimedes, Slumbering Isle. This one is really, 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 really cool. If you don't know this card, it enters the battlefield tap with five slumber counters on it, and it enters essentially as a land. So you are getting it. If you have any landfall triggers, you're getting those. And this card is hard to remove unless you have specific land removal while it still has the slumber counter. So a lot of times what I like to do is keep it as a land for a while until I feel like I have an advantageous point to where I can get it out on a turn. And the beauty of it is that as it's a land, once it's on the field, it's on the field. So once you decide to remove that final slumber counter, you're able to put it as a creature onto the field. And again, no summoning sickness because it's been on the field. It doesn't change permanent type. It just is now a creature instead of just a land. And what's really cool is it gives you the option to remove, because if you notice, it says whenever you cast a spell, you may remove a slumber counter. So you do not have to remove the slumber counters. I usually get it down to 1, and then I'll leave it at that 1 until I'm ready to actually use it as a creature, which is a nice card to have. A lot of times that has saved me if I'm feeling that there's going to be a board wipe. I usually typically like to leave that as a land, and then if somebody decides to board wipe, then I usually bring that out as a creature the next turn and swing for what was it? Is it 12? It's a 12/12. So it's pretty huge. Zusa, Lost But Seeking, no, should be no questions there. I'm going to be able to play 2 additional lands on each turn. If I get a bunch of lands with loot, with his loot ability, then I'm able to play all those lands. Beanstalk Worm, I usually only use it as ramp, but another card that you can use to play from exile because it is a adventure type card. So its adventure for 2 is going to be playing an additional land the turn, and then he goes into exile, and I can play him at a later time. It is sorcery speed, so I can only do it during my turn on one of the main phases. But again, it's a 5/4 body with reach. If I decide to play it, usually again I don't. I usually like it for the sorcery speed, or not the sorcery speed, but the sorcery way to help ramp if needed. Bonehorde Drekosaur. This one is, I think, a big staple in a lot of decks. I think it's a very, very good card. The price point at $15.99 to $12.99 is definitely I think worth it. It is a flying first strike 5/5 creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, you're going to exile the top 2 cards of your library, and you may play them this turn. If you exile a land card this way, you create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token, and if you exile a non-land card this way, you create a treasure token. Important to note that it does not double up, so you don't get 2 dinosaur tokens if you exile 2 land cards, or you don't get 2 treasures if you exile 2 non-land cards. You only get the benefit of maybe getting 1 of each. If you get 2 of the same one, you only still get 1. But very important that it is a flying body. I don't have very many of those in this deck. And it is a way for you to continually get more of the same thing that Loot's doing, getting that impulse, getting extra cards to play that turn, and you're getting the benefit of potentially getting an extra treasure token, another mana resource, which is really nice to have in this deck. Can never have enough mana in this deck. All right, this is usually my best defender here, is Brash Taunter. If you can get this out on the field, good luck. I mean, he doesn't have flying or reach, so if you can give it that, great. But typically, he is my go ahead and fight me creature. If it has trample that creature, well then, yeah, no, we're in trouble. But the cool thing is if I don't feel like I'm gonna be able to use it mainly for defense, then I will most definitely do it for offensive purposes. So its ability is this: it's indestructible. Whenever is dealt damage, I deal that much damage back to target opponent. So it's indestructible. So they have to either exile it, or they have to do the bring down the defense to 0 with another card. But if you pay 3 mana, you can tap it, and he can fight another target creature. Now it's really nice that he's a 1/1, because what I'll also like to do is if there's not a big scary creature on the field that is the opponents, I'll usually do it on my biggest thing. Or if I'm able to get out one of my big like game ending spells, which actually I think on this list I took them off because I recently put them in my landfall deck. But if you're able to get like a overwhelming stampede or something, and you boost all your creatures, then imagining that this fights a boosted creature, you can hit something else or essentially a target opponent for however much damage it does. So like anywhere from like 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 damage depending how big your other creature is that you fought with, and then you're able to then shoot that damage directly at somebody else, which is really nice. I really am a very big fan of this card. 5 cost is a little pricey, but again, 79 cents for this card is definitely not a bad one. We got Doc Orlick, and he is another Thunder Junction staple for this deck. Spells you cast from your graveyard are gonna, or exile, cost 2 less to cast. Everything that Bonehorde Dracosaur is doing, everything that Loot's doing is getting them into exile. So now I'm taking 2 generic less off of each of those spells. Each of those spells every time I cast them. This, no ifs, ands, or buts. This is very, very needed in this deck, and it has really helped me a lot when you're able to guarantee you're able to play more cards with what you're getting. If you get into a position where you're exiled 7 cards and you have a decent amount of mana, but obviously you hit some higher end spells, this is one that's going to help you to where you can play more cards. So this one is again another creature that I don't like to attack with, but it's more just for its ability. Does the same thing for plotting cards, but I don't have anything in my deck that is actually plotting like a plot card itself. So very, very cool. All right, we got Aranis Gloomstalker. Very simple card. Whenever it attacks, return target land from your graveyard to the battlefield. Specifically, this is for my lands that are getting sacked. So your Terramorphic Expanses, your Evolving Wilds, essentially being able to get multiple lands out per turn, or rather, cheating out a land. And basically using it to get another land again. So again, if you notice, it also is just returning it to the battlefield. It's not coming in tapped. So it's a really, really nice card to just cheat out some lands and get some more ramp. But again, it does have Death Touch, but it's only a 3/3. So if somebody decides to block it and kill it, getting a land or 2 off of a 3-drop, not too bad. All right. This one's the big one. This is one of my game enders, and it's also one of my what you would consider wild card cards that you're able to like just create shenanigans. You're able to cause chaos, if you will. So this is a Tali Primal Conqueror. This is a double-sided Atali. So it starts with the keyword trample, so it's running over anything as a 7/7. When the Tali enters, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. So they have to exile a non-land card. You're not stealing any lands, and they'll keep on passing it until they get to a non-land card. I may cast any number of spells from among those non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. So again, another exiled sequence of cards, and it's not only mine, it's other opponents. I try not to put too many of those types of cards in here, just because I totally get there's a lot of people that get very upset when you are stealing stuff from their deck. But I do like this because it does create some chaos, and essentially if somebody, maybe might be threatening, you might be able to steal something that, potentially could have won them the game. Or you might hit a board wipe that you didn't have that, that they may have. Or you might hit something that you're able to disrupt what's going on in the field. And that's really nice. And being able to take that away from an opponent and use it for yourself is really cool. And being able to, not pay their mana costs, like, that is awesome. So that's really cool. What makes this card scary? And this is what people are very afraid of with this card. There's a transform ability. It's for 9 generic and 1 green Phyrexian, which is either 2 life or you can just pay the 1 green. So if I flip this card over, this is the sickness part. This is what makes it sick. So if you're able to flip it over, you're going to give it trample, which it already had, and indestructible. Whenever Tali Primal Sickness deals combat damage to a player, they're going to get that many poison counters. It's an 11/11, guys. If this gets through and they can't block it, it's instant death. You can only take 10 poison counters. Once you get to your 10th poison counter, you're done. And that's also assuming you're not boosting him with anything. You're done. I have a bunch of ways in this deck to give things unblockable. You're done. Does it cost a lot to get it there? Absolutely. But in this deck, anything is possible. And definitely, if you're able to cheat this out on the field somehow early or during somebody else's turn, and then pay the cost the next turn on your your main phase, it's easily knocking people out. That's a scary card, very very scary card. All right, I'm gonna try to burn through these next ones very fast. We got a token creator. I'm gonna have a few of these in here. I swear it was not my intention to make a token deck because I have a token deck, my squirrel deck. But this one was definitely one that's needed. Anytime I cast a spell from exile or a land enters the battlefield from exile, create a 2/2 green wolf. That's all this deck is doing. So definitely important. Other ability, discard a card, exile the top of your library. You may play it this turn. Usually never use that unless I'm in a desperate situation to try to find an answer, but typically not an ability we use. We got Fiendish Duo. First strike, if a source would deal damage to an opponent, that's any source, not just yours, it deals double damage to that player instead. Really good politic card. Help other people deal damage and get rid of the threats because they're creatures and sources, even just it could be instants and sorceries, are dealing double damage as long as it deals damage to an opponent, not to the creature itself, but to the opponent. We got Flaming Tyrannosaurus. This is a Doctor Who card. I had a lot of Doctor Who cards in this set, or in this deck rather. It's Menace and Paradox. Whenever I cast a spell from anywhere other than my hand, which is all the time, it's going to deal 3 damage to any target, and then I'm going to put a +1/+1 counter on Flaming Tyrannosaurus. If it dies, not exiles, if it exiles doesn't work, but if it dies, I deal damage equal to its power to each opponent. Play a bunch of cards from exile, which is this whole deck's purpose, and then if it decides to blow up, then you're able to hit your opponents for a lot of damage. It's guaranteed if it dies, even at its base form, 5 damage to each opponent. 7 cost, but well worth it in this deck for sure. We got a new addition from this one says it's Innistrad. I got this one from Innistrad Remastered. This is Hullbreaker Horror. This one is one that definitely people do not like. This is a very salty card because first of all, it's flash. I can play it whenever. Can't be countered. Whenever I cast a spell, I'm going to choose up to 1. I can return target spell I don't control to owner's hand, or I can return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Target spell, nice, fun, love it, but it's actually that second one. Being able to bounce stuff for just playing spells is insane. If you get this on the board and you're like a save some mana, you flash this out during the person before you's instep, and then you just go to town playing all these reduced cards from exile, you're getting benefit of building your board and you're sending stuff back to other people's hands, which is crazy. So they're not getting fully rid of it, but now they're having to respend their resources on stuff, and that definitely can irk some people the wrong way. Definitely a scary card. Jolene, she's just a treasure creator. If I attack with a creature 4 or greater, or 1 or more rather, so you only get 1 instance of it, you're going to create a treasure token, just getting some early mana. We got Layla, the Blade Reforged. I think I ended up taking her out, but if she was still in, when she attacks, exile the top card of my library. I may play it this turn. Whenever 1 or more cards are put, not played, but put into exile from your library or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And it has haste, so you're able to do that immediately on play. We got Lotus Cobra, landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana, just helping ramp. Mina and Den, Wildborn. This is one I play it specifically so that I can get the additional land on each of my turns, just like Azusa. And I think there was a reasoning. I thought this was a really good ability. It is a good ability in a landfall deck, and I think that was its purpose. Like, I think I had thought of, like, well, if I have an Azusa out, I can pay into its ability to bounce a land and keep on playing it and potentially use that mana to build my landfall. I think the only, you can't, if you had a way to do it infinitely, you can't, because you have a certain number of lands that you can play, but you can do it a couple times. If you use the land that you played plus the land that you get from like a Lotus Cobra. You could potentially do that multiple times to get landfall triggers if something was a landfall trigger. But I think most of mine for landfall, other than one of my enchantments, is a from exile, so not the greatest. All right, getting down to the bottom here. We got Naufishni. This card is scary as well in this deck. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, you're going to copy it. You can choose new targets, and if it's a permanent spell, copy gains haste. And at the beginning of end step, you have to sacrifice it. So basically, any of those cards that I'm playing, I get a double down on them. And then if they're a creature, they get haste, and I get to use them immediately, which is really nice. We got my other, I wouldn't say game ender, but definitely one that can scare people into ending the game, which is Old Gnawbone. Legendary Flying Dragon. If you don't know what it does, just like all the legendary dragons, it's crazy. You're going to basically deal combat damage to a player. If you do combat damage to a player, you're going to create that many treasure tokens. It's already a 7/7, and that's any creature on my board. So that's what makes it scary. If it was just Gnawbone, okay, people, yeah, a little scary, but not bad. But now you're talking about every creature. And in a deck that can get multiple creatures out very quickly, that can be very scary. When that gets out on the field, I think every pod I've played with has immediately said, that's a problem. We need to get rid of that. And that's the purpose of that in this deck, is to be a problem. Roxanne, man, this card was a hot card for a while when Thunder Junction came out. I really like it. I still kind of want to build a deck around it. But this is a very, very cool card. Essentially, what this is going to do is when it enters or attacks, you're going to create a tapped colorless artifact token named Meteorite. Okay, when it enters, it's going to deal 2 damage. So every time you create this Meteorite, it's going to get 2 damage to any target. It could be a creature, could be a player, could be anybody. You're also, that Meteorite, it's important that it's tapped because it can tap for adding 1 mana any color. So that's the kind of help negate it from being super abusive. You do have to wait a turn to use that Meteorite, but unlike your treasure tokens, you are going to be able to keep it on the field. It is not a one and done use. You're constantly able to tap it for mana. So it essentially is just a mana rock that stays. Whenever you tap an artifact token, again, keyword token, for mana, you're going to add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produced. So now that artifact that could tap for 1 mana, now it's going to tap for 2. And really it's only for that type of token, as well as like treasure tokens. So now treasure tokens are tapping for double. So this is a way to get some more mana sources, as well as doubling down on letting them get you more mana. I think this is a very underrated card. Definitely one that most people aren't as afraid of right away, up until it does become a problem, and then it's really scary. Very, very cool. All right, we're down to our last 3. We got the 9th Doctor. He causes all types of shenanigans. He has haste. He's a 2/4, so he has a little bit of a wider bottom, which is good. And whenever he becomes untapped during my untap step, I get an additional upkeep step after this one. So let's say loot lets me get 5 cards from his ability. I get to untap 9th Doctor. Now I get an additional 5. So he's just basically propelling you to basically help get to the cards that you need to get to. What is scary is you get them down too early and you don't have enough mana. Well, now you're really could get yourself into trouble if you don't have enough mana to spend for those things. And again, that's what makes this deck fun, in my opinion, is you never know. Sometimes I play a game and I hit all of my big cards and I don't have enough mana to play them, and then they're gone. And then I have to figure out a way to battle that, and that's what makes this deck fun. And I purposely built that with this deck with that in mind, of not always having the same plays to try to pull from. And then the last card, Tireless Provisioner, one of my few landfall ability creatures. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, I can either create a food or a treasure token. Multiple lands enter, you're getting a lot of treasure tokens. Food, not so much, but usually it's treasure, because I'm not going to do too much with food in this deck. All right, let's go to our sorceries. We got a lot. Let's just quickly go through these. Amanatu's Augury. It's an 8 cost, but you're exiling the top 8 cards. You put a land from them on the battlefield, and then until the end of turn, each non-land card type, you may cast that spell for free, but you only get 1 of each of those choices. So when we're talking non-land card types, we're talking about enchantments, sorceries, instants, artifacts, creatures, battles, every permanent type that you can have, which this deck has, I think, 6 of the 7. That like you're able to play it for free. Now, are you gonna get a couple doubles you're not gonna be able to use? Absolutely, but this is usually my home run card of like I need answers. I need to shake it up. I need something to basically make it to where I can help get myself to a winning position. This is the card that I want, and this is the card that I love to see and I love to play because I know it's going to be shenanigans from that point on. And again, they're coming from exile, so if you have any of those exile ability creatures, you're going to have fun. Cultivate, you're basically ramping up, searching your library for 2 land cards, getting on the field. Decimate, this one is very controversial in that it's good, but it's not good. In Magic, if it specifies that you have to destroy X amount of things and they're not may or an up to, you have to have all of those things checked off or else the spell doesn't work. So this card reads: destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. Land hate is definitely one that people are not a fan of. I've gone up against enough decks to know that you need at least one land removal card, because if not, they're gonna cause shenanigans. I'm looking at you, Glacial Chasm. Definitely a card that is very specific, but usually by the time I get this in my hand or get this in exile, I have a way to play it. And if not, I find a way to play it just so I can make sure that I get it done. I can't tell you how many people have good lands that are very important to win cons in their deck, and it's really nice to see this once that gets out so that you can get rid of it. However, a lot of times those same people are playing Graveyard Recursion with their lands, so they'll get it back. Disrupt Decorum, you're goading all creatures you don't control. For those that are new to Magic, essentially all the creatures that are on the field that are not mine have to attack the next turn. Whatever cards come in after the fact on their person's next turn, they don't have to attack, but everything that is on the field that's not mine, creature-wise, has to attack. This is a card that usually helps me give myself another turn. Essentially, if there's somebody that's a threat on the board and I don't think I'm going to be able to handle them my turn, but I think I have a way to disrupt them the next turn, or I just need another turn to survive to maybe get to something I need, this is a card I use to just, again, cause chaos and just have everybody go against each other. And there's not an option. They have to decide and choose. I like what was the flavor text? Dinner and politics don't mix. Definitely a lot of politicking when we get to that point, and I just get to sit back and revel in the chaos. All right, Ensnared by the Mara. This card, y'all, is sorcery. This is one of my favorite cards from Doctor Who, and I cannot stress that enough. There's a lot of wording to this text. To make it simple, they're getting a villainous choice from the villain precon, by the way. Either they're going to exile the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, and I get to play it for free. Or they can take a gamble and they can exile just the top 4 cards and take damage equal to the CMC. For non-Magic players, the CMC is the cost associated with the spell. This is a 4 cost. So they're taking direct damage from whatever the top 4 cards are. It is a gamble in that if you hit it all lands, no damage is done. But if you have a deck that has a lot of big cost cards, do you risk getting knocked out of the game? Could you let's just say for fun, every card you hit was a 3 cost. That's 12 damage in a 40 life game. Now let's bump it up to 4. That's 16. Bump it up to 5. That's 20. And that's just assuming they're all the same. Some people have 7, 8 cost cards. Could you imagine their first card hitting you for 8? Like, definitely one that is fun. It gives them the choice, and people know their deck. Sometimes they'll take the risk. And sometimes they know, you know what, that is a bad gamble, but I also don't want you to potentially hit something in my deck. And that's the other fun part, is like, if they give you something that is great to use, perfect. Fun card. Definitely, if you're playing mono red, or any red deck, I think no matter what your deck is, that's a really good card. Let's keep on going. We got Inspired Tinkering. Going to exile some cards to play until next turn, and they're going to give me 3 treasure tokens. That's going to be very good. Mini partings, you're going to search your library for a basic land and create a food token. Why did I put this one compared to others? Because of the food token. I need permanent types, and so again, food is an artifact type, and I only run 3 artifacts, which I again did not realize until today. So I need to have ways to make sure and ensure I have a artifact on the field so that can cut my permanent cost, or rather add to my permanent count for loot. So again, if we're talking about the ones that I have Battle, which is 1, Planeswalker 2, creatures are 3, artifacts would be 4, enchantments would be 5, and I thought there were 7. I guess maybe there's 6. Yeah, there is 6. The other one is they're called Kindred, which I don't have any of those. I think there was only one that would potentially fit my deck, and I refused to get it because it was kind of silly. But just another way to create a artifact on my field that I probably won't use, but just use it as a way to get loot to give me some more options. Over the Edge, one of my few interaction spells that's very directed. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Or I can have creature explore and explore again, which is a Ixalan way to boost your character with some +1/+1 counters. Past in the Flames. Each card in your graveyard gains flashback until the end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So you're essentially being able to play some instants and sorceries from your graveyard again, which is really nice if you're able to get it there. And however, once you do that, it does go into exile. And this card, just so you know, also has flashback. Really, really good option. We have Reforge the Soul. It's just a way to wheel. In this deck, sometimes if I'm not hitting very many options in my exile, I hit a lot of land cards, then I need to play stuff from my hand. Eventually, my hand maybe doesn't refill as well. So I need to be able to have a way to refill my hand, or have a way to make sure people don't have good things in their hands. If somebody just drew half of their library with one of those crazy cards, then being able to have them discard everything and only have 7 back in their hand is really, really nice. We got the next one, Subjugate the Hobbits. Favorite game ender in this deck. Maybe I've said that already with another card, but this one is funny. Gain control of each non-commander creature with mana value 3 or less. That's permanent. That's not like, for the turn. No, it's permanent. Non-commander, very important, because that would be rude if it was commander, because there's a lot of commanders that are 3 costs and under. Loot. But why I like this is because this is my answer to tokens. If somebody has a token deck and they have a bunch of flying tokens, or somebody gets a bunch of Sapperlings from their Avenger of Zendikar, or they're playing artifacts and they're getting big, bulky artifact creatures, well, yeah, it's 7 costs, but now they're mine. And I say this is a game ender because usually this will get me a lot of bodies and make my board very wide. And then hopefully on the next turn, I'm able to end it. And you have to end it on your next turn. Unless I have a way to give all the creatures on my board rush, which there is, I think, 1 or 2 options in this deck to do that. They still have Summoning Sickness when they come to my board. But being able to essentially take things off of other people's boards is nice. And again, mana value 3 or less. Anything bigger than 3 will stay on their board. But you have to imagine there's a lot of cards that are 3 or less. And artifact creatures are 0, or token creatures just in general are 0 costs. So that's the fun part about that, is you're automatically going to get those. Summer Bloom is one of my favorite land ramp cards to see. Play up to 3 additional lands this turn. If I have that in my hand with multiple lands by turn 2, getting out like 4 or 5 lands is really nice. And usually people are like, wait, what? Because I don't see anybody really play this card, but it is a really cool card. Now, typically when that happens, now I don't have a hand, but what's really nice is that by that point I can play, hopefully my commander and maybe something else, so that I have a permanent type, so I can slowly start getting the engine going for loot, which is really cool. And then last but not least, Thirsting Roots. I can search for a basic land card, or I can proliferate and boost some counters on some things. All right. Instance. Let's go through these quickly. Beast Within. Destroy target permanent creature. Controller gains a 3/3 green beast. This is my other land removal if needed. But just any target in general that needs to get destroyed. Counterspell. Gotta love Counterspell. Just counter target spell. However, in this deck, because of how wild it is and how it plays, I can a lot of times get this in my, more times than not, in my exile, because I get it with a loot trigger, and I unfortunately can't play it because I'm not countering anybody during my turn. The one and only game changer in this deck, Cyclonic Rift. Nothing needs to be said about this card other than obviously it's a really good card. Return target non-land permanents you don't control to owner's hand, singular. But if you pay the overload cost, then basically you change the target to each. So essentially getting rid of every buddy's board that's not a land. Everything goes back to their hand. So another game ender here, just because again you're essentially wiping everybody's board, including mana rocks, including other tokens, and if there are tokens that are like food or things like that, those permanently go away. So just a really, really big game changer. And again, I cannot stress how great of a card this is. Very, very nice. Elminster's Simulacrum. Really pretty chill card. It's a 6 cost, but for each opponent, create a token that's a copy of up to one target creature that player controls. If I get this card and I see some things on other people's boards that are like, I don't like what that's doing, well, let me go ahead and do that with them. Then I'll get copies of those specific creatures, which is really funny. It's just a way to also build my board with threats and just kind of join in on the fun with whatever they're doing. Growth Spiral, draw a card, and put another land card from my hand on the battlefield, so another way to ramp and card draw. We got Lull. This is my only fog. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Somebody decides I'm the threat, they come all out forces with me, play this card for 2, and basically no damage is being dealt. March of the Swirling Mist, another way for me to kind of protect myself. Basically, pay into X. Up to X targets creatures phase out. So basically, you're getting rid of those creatures until their next untap step. And especially if I decide to do that with with some other cards, with my own cards or their cards, it's just a way to just kind of help protect things that I have. You have Polymorphous Jest, which I don't remember this card being this much. When I got this card, this was like 75 cents. I don't know when this card jumped up. Actually, you know what? I think it's because of the printing. Let me see if I can fix that. I think I have the Commander one. But anyways, but still, this card is it's fun, but I don't know why it's that expensive. Until the end of turn, each creature target player controls loses all abilities and becomes a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1. So again, you kind of as an attacker have lost the ability to do surprise instance on attack. You kind of have to do it on attack or right before you declare your attacks, unfortunately, due to the rule changes. But essentially, if you know that somebody's a threat and you need to get rid of something, this is a global one for their creatures. So it gets around ward, gets around some of those things, and gets around protection. So basically making all of their stuff 1/1s and knowing that you can just tramp or run over them is really, really nice. Used to be, it would be great to have that as a secondary, or not secondary, but as a surprise when they decide to block with all their big stuff and then you make them 1/1s. But unfortunately that's changed. Probably for the best. All right, this card is my combo piece to game end with Atali, with Old Gnawbone, just anything big, Archimedes. So this I think is one of the underrated cards from Doctor Who. I really think if there's one card I can press onto everybody, if you're running red blue and you're trying to swing, this card is one of the best instances. Here's why. 1 or 2 target creatures each gain haste. Great. Already great. If I get Atali out and I want to be able to swing with it, great. If I have Old Gnawbone, I want to be able to swing, great. If I have any creature and I want to be able to swing right away, give it haste. Great. Already perfect. But here is the kicker. They can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste. Are there a lot of creatures that are going to potentially have haste for other people? Maybe. But I don't see a whole lot of people running haste. They do, but not very many. Maybe a creature or two. Then you just don't choose those creatures. Or now they have to block with those creatures if they want to protect themselves. Very, very, very good card. And what makes this great, guys, is this last part right here. It has escape. Exile 4 other cards from your graveyard, and then you can play this card for 4. Like, guys, you could play this card and then play it. Like, if you get a huge graveyard, play it again. You have more mana, play it again. Now you have multiple creatures that have haste and can't be blocked unless they have haste. That is fantastic. If you have an overwhelming stampede, and now you have Megazord like creatures, like it's game ending. What does that pair with? Why is that important? I'm gonna skip ahead to an enchantment that I think is one that a lot of people use, but this is the other reason. Pay 5. Untap all creatures you control. If it's a main phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. So check it out, guys. You play that card. You play that on Old Gnawbone. Let's say nobody on the board has flying. That's game. Old Gnawbone's a 7. You're getting 7 treasure tokens. You spend 5. You still have 2 left over. You do it again. And you do it again. And you do it again. You essentially have a semi-infinite combat step. Why I say semi-infinite is because, or pseudo-infinite rather, is because one flying creature stops it, right? It doesn't have trample, but technically you just could also work your way around the board until you get enough treasure to where you could have enough to pay for it multiple times and knock out whatever threats are on the board. But again, very, very, very cool card. And that's why I have that card in here to pair it with that. Or just to, let's say I flip over Atali into its sickness form, and then it's like, oh, 11 poison counters, I can block like 9 of it. No, you can't. Try again, because now you ain't blocking it. You're definitely getting ran over, and you're definitely taking those poison counters. This card has won me so many games. Again, if you are not running this card, I think you're sleeping on it. I think it's a very, very good Doctor Who card. Very, very good. We have Summoner's Pact. This is one I had added recently. This is my only tutor. Search for a green creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. But at the beginning of your next turn, I have to pay 4. If I don't, I lose the game. Usually I'm not playing this unless I know I can play it. Searching for a green creature, I have a bunch of them. Typically, the one I'm probably going to be looking for, if I'm going to pay 4 for it, you guessed it, is Old Gnawbone. Gonna definitely make sure I have them that in my hand. And again, if I get it, great. If I have it, sometimes I, again, don't use it early. I just like to save it for when I need to, and maybe get it out later on in the game so that I can get Old Gnawbone. When I have enough mana to play this, I get Old Gnawbone out. Very, very good. 3 steps ahead. This one is a really good counterspell. This one is only $6. It's dropped a little bit. This used to be 10. But what makes this card really cool, it's another Thunder Junction. It's a spree card, so you can pay 1 or more additional costs, so you can get all these abilities if you decide to pay for it. Typically, you can use it for a counter spell, but it is a 3-cost counter. You can pay 4, like 3, and then the 1 that you've already paid, to create a token that's a copy of a target artifact or a creature you control. Nice for your non-legendaries. However, if you noticed, I have a lot of legendaries. Or you can pay 2 generic in the blue, and you can draw 2 and discard 1. Again, I typically have it for a surprise counter. Maybe I want to create a token. I just like the versatility of this card, and it's definitely a card that a lot of people really enjoyed from Thunder Junction. I think that was one that was a very highly sought after instant compared to like some of the other permanent types that we saw. Okay, artifacts, not going to go through those. Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, Talisman of Creativity, they're just mana rocks helping build. We went over Aggravated Assault. Bigger on the inside. I need to just commit more to using this. If not, I think I'm going to cut it. It's a enchantment. You can enchant an artifact or a land. Whenever you tap that artifact or land, you add 2 mana of any one color, so you're essentially getting 2 mana for the price of 1. But the next spell you cast this turn has Cascade, which is really cool. Just basically getting free spells. Can't say won't say any more about that. Count on Your Luck. I have not gotten this card to get out yet, but it's an Aether Drift card, one of the most despised sets in all of Magic. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Pretty easy enough. Curse of Opulence. This is my politic card. Put this on somebody that I see is probably going to be a threat so that they can get hit by other people early. Essentially, when they get attacked, I get a gold token, and the opponent that's attacking them gets a gold token. So that's why I say it's a politicking card. You're able to get mana sources from other people attacking your opponent, which is great. Everwatching Threshold. If opponent attacks me, I draw a card. Fires of Yavimaya, just giving my creatures haste. Gratuitous Violence. If a creature I control would deal damage to a permanent or player, important note, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player. So basically making my creatures even scarier. Colony Heart Expedition. It's a landfall triggered enchantment. Once I hit 3 lands while that's on the field, it sacrifices itself and I get 2 lands tapped. Paradox Haze. Enchant player. Essentially, I'm going to, at the beginning of my upkeep, get an additional upkeep step after that step. So it essentially does what the other Doctor does, a 9th Doctor, but better because it's just an enchantment and I don't need a tap for it. Maddening Hex. This one is another fun one. I like getting this one out early. It's only a 3 cost. Whenever enchanted player casts a non-creature spell, they roll a d6. A Maddening Hex deals damage to that player equal to the result. Then attach Maddening Hex to another one of your opponents chosen at random. Why do I like this card? Because it can never get back to you. There's a lot of other cards that have similar things that eventually can make their way back to you. This one does not. And that is like my favorite thing about this card. This card has won me so many games just by existing. Just by having it out. And again, it doesn't matter who it's on. I own the enchantment. It's my permanent type. I still get a loot trigger off of it. So being able to like deal damage just because other people are playing cards is awesome. And again, like I said, it's won me games. In one game in particular, I do remember somebody literally gambling, having to play a instant or sorcery, and they had 6 life yet, and they rolled a 6, and I was able to win. If they got that off, I would have anything else, they would have beat me because they would have been able to play that spell. But yeah, definitely did not get it. Passion Archaeologist. I can deal damage to a target opponent equal to the mana cost for each spell. Note that it's for my commander creatures. It gives my commander that ability. So if my commander's not on the field, this does nothing. But once my commander's on the field, which usually hopefully it stays, basically anytime I play a spell from exile, it's doing damage to a target opponent. So I'm just burning people for playing spells, which is great. Power Balance. This is another funny card. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, I reveal the top card of my library. If they share the same mana cost, I get to play my spell for free. However, once I flip it, if it doesn't equal, now everybody knows what I have. If it's a land, it's a dud. It's not going to work until I draw that card. But, knowing like I could flip it and have the same number, like a 5 cost, they play a 5 cost. Now I get to play a spell for free on my turn, or sorry, rather their turn. That is awesome. I love hitting all my creatures with that card. And again, that's a gamble. It's hit or miss. A lot of times it's a miss, but when it hits, it hits. All right, we're getting to the end of this. Lost and the Damned. This is one of my token creations. Anytime I play a spell from anywhere other than my hand, or cast a spell, or play a land, or when the land enters the battlefield from anywhere other than my hand, creating a 3/3. Great. And last but not least, my latest edition from Final Fantasy. It is Triple Triad. It is a 6-cost card. I've only gotten this out once. Unfortunately, it did not make it to my upkeep to do it, just because somebody ended up winning the game or by that point. But essentially, at the beginning of my upkeep, I exile the top card of my library, as well as each other opponent. It's each player, y'all. And until the end of turn, I may play the card I own from exile that way, and each other card exile that way with lesser mana value without paying its mana cost. So that right there is, again, it's another gamble, but I like it because I'm also able to potentially get some things out of other people's decks that maybe I don't want to see on the board, right? So they're getting exiled no matter what. If I'm able to play them because of the ability, great. If I can't because they cost more, then that's fine. Like that's that again. It's a gamble, but it is really nice in that like again you're able to toy with people again. Like I said, there's only I think 2 cards that or 3 cards that do that, right? So it's a Tali, which is a one time. It's the power or not power balance, the mana snare, which is the second one, which is a one time, and then triple triad is the only one that could potentially be reoccurring. But again, I may not be able to play their stuff just because it is. I say mana snare and snared by the Mara. But yeah, this is just kind of a gamble. I wanted to get it to hit. I want to see how it does. I'm leaving it in for now. It is kind of an expensive 6 cost. And again, I'm trying my best with this deck not to put too many high cost cards all the time because again, if I run into the risk of having to exile these because I hit all of them at the same time, but it is definitely a great card to have. But yeah, guys, that's my deck. Again, running 33 lands, all pretty generic lands with a couple tricks here and there, but nothing too crazy. Yeah, man. Oh my goodness, it's been almost an hour. I'm so sorry. I thought that was a lot quicker than that. I thought maybe like 20-30 minutes. I talk way too much. I'm so sorry. If you stayed for this long, I truly do appreciate it. Again, I would appreciate it if you like this content to like, subscribe, leave a comment. If there's certain things that you want me to talk about, again, I'm really right now just sticking to my main 3, which is Lorcana, Magic, and One Piece, which again still fairly new to that. So if you want more content of that, I'm gonna have to like actually play more often. But I really appreciate it. But yeah, tell me what you guys want to see. Again, this was just kind of a loose video on me trying to just kind of showcase some of the cards I have in this deck. Oh, I guess I did skip one somehow. I did skip the 13th Doctor. But just so you know, that one, whenever I cast a spell from anywhere other than my hand, which is all the time, I put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. At the beginning of my end step, I untap each creature with a counter on it. So no need to say anything else about that. I'm able to attack, untap, and make sure everything is able to block if needed. I will say the only thing warning with that is that do not put it on the 9th Doctor. I made that mistake and realized my mistake, and it was too late. So every time I'd get to my end step, he would untap, and I essentially negated his power. And I was like, no! I just wanted him to be a little bit stronger and realized that I just completely negated it. But anyways, but yeah, thank you for tuning in again. Hopefully you liked the deck. Again, if you want to see more content like this, again, just please let me know what you are interested in seeing, and I hope you enjoyed. All right, hope you have a great day.